Hello, in this tutorial I'll be showing you how to put together your 2D game assets like your flipbook, your tile maps, and then work with blueprints to add some character movement and work with flipbook variables in a way. So we're going to start with File, New Level, and we're going to work with Empty Level. After this, click Create. I only have this pop up because I already have like a level that I opened. So in this same work content, we'll have our sprites and our flipbooks, and we'll have the tiles we have been working with. So we'll take the tile map that we've painted on and place it in the level. So this is what we can see. We can see all of the collision maps. Sorry, collision where we've set it. So this is ready to be incorporated into a game. So I would like you to create a new folder. I just right clicked onto the empty space folder, and I'm going to call it blueprints. So this folder was made inside the blueprint into the tiles, so I want it in content so they're easier to navigate. So I've got division of blueprints, sprites, and tiles. So I've got blueprints. So now I right click blueprint class, and I want to create a player controller. I'm going to call it PC underscore game. This can be named whatever you want after the underscore, so it can be your game name because that's the player controller. So we're in here, we kind of set off the player controls for the game. Now we're going to make another blueprint. This time we're going to create a game mode. This is where you define the game being played, like rules, scoring, and other types, like it says on the side. So we're going to call it GM, and I'm going to call it game as well. The reason why I'm fine with having the same name is because I've got the distinction between GM and PC. Now we're going to make another blueprint class. This time we're going to use all classes. So let's click this arrow to get other options. Now if we were to search, it might take a long time. So what we're looking for is for paper character. So that's what we type. So actor, pawn character, paper character, select, and now that's being called BP character. Unless you've got a name for your character. So we've already organized our blueprint, so all of these will be in our blueprint class. Let's double click the GM game, and it loads it like this. So my details was hidden on the side. Yours is likely to be showing. So now we have some settings that we need to change. So now in the classes, we're going to set player state class, player controller state class, and we're going to set it to PC game. And now for some extra modifications and customization, we can go to project settings, and in maps and modes we can define default modes. So my default mode is the GM game that I've set. Default pawn class is BP character. Player controller class is PC game. And then in default maps, At the startup map, if you want your level to be the first thing that loads up, you can set it up here. So whatever it is that you called this level is going to appear here. It might not appear yet unless you press save, because bear in mind we just created this, so it's unsaved. But what I would like you to do now, in the search option, type exposure. What we want to turn off is auto exposure. So I already have my auto exposure turned off, but if you have it on and open Unreal, it might just brighten your entire scene to the point where it's... So this is what we see inside our BP character. So there's nothing inside the capsule. What we need to do is define what is like a default state for a character, let's say. So to do that, we're going to go to the left hand side on the BP character self, look for sprite and click it. In details, find sprite source flipbook. So in here where it says none, we click on it and we pick which is our default state for our character. So in this case, it's idle. So this thing, as we can see from the left hand side, it's called capsule component. So it's collision cylinder. So collision capsule, if you will. So what you want to do is you want to scale it down so it has your character inside, and you do that in shape, capsule half height, and can work also a bit on the radius. The line thickness only works with how thick the line of your collision cylinder is, so that's not necessary. So in Unreal, if you change some of the settings, some of the values, and you want to go back and don't remember what was the default value, because sometimes the default value will not be 0. Sometimes, like we have above in transform, it's 1. So if you don't remember that, this is fine. There is a simple Unreal fix, which is clicking on this arrow. So it resets this to a default value that the software had. So now the problem is we need to have the character inside the capsule. As close as you can get the bottom of the capsule to the legs, the better. So the way I'm doing it is I'm just clicking W, E, or R. In this case, I just need to click W on my keyboard, or I can use the settings over here on top. So we can always change these a bit later. So let's leave that and move on to the next step. So next thing that we need to do is add a camera. So we can't add a camera without a spring arm that's going to hold it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click add, and we're going to type spring, and the first thing that's going to pop up is spring arm. And now we can see this line. So what this spring arm is going to do is going to hold the camera. And the camera that we're at is going to show the game. So now what we need to make sure is that we keep having this spring arm selected when we click add and type camera. What we want is the camera to show directly underneath the spring arm. What that means is that this camera is the child of spring. So if we make changes to the position of spring arm, the camera will move with it. So now we click spring arm. We need the camera to be rotated in a way where it faces the character. Like I said, in transform, find rotation and determine which value rotates the camera so it faces the character. I figured it out, it's the blue one, and that's X. So I'm going to try minus 90, and there we go. It is facing the camera. Sorry, the camera is facing the character. Now there is some settings in the camera that we need to edit. So we're going to click on camera, and in details, where it says camera settings, we're going to change the projection mode to orthographic. So this projection mode is more suited towards a 2D view because this is the game that we are making. If we want to adjust ortho width, that's the distance between the camera. So you'll be able to play with those settings once you actually start, once you've finished with your blueprints. So now we're going to our main level view. So we just switch the tab. What I'm just going to do is quickly save all, and I'm going to name this. I'm going to name it dungeon level. So now that this is all saved, I'm going to click on the cube, go to basic, and add a player start. What this does essentially is tell the game where the player is starting. So you want to position it somewhere where the character is going to be. So I pressed R to scale it down. What you may notice is that it will say bad size. That just means your player start is colliding with the collision that you've set in your tile map. Sorry. Now, after we've done that, we've set up the basis for our game. Now we have to start working on adding the movement. So to stay organized, let's add another folder. This folder will be called input because this is where all of our input for the movement data is going to be stored. Double click it, and I would like you to right click input, and I would like you to create input mapping context. So for short is IMC. And I'm going to call it default because that's the default settings for my game. So if you double click it, you see there's essentially barely anything in it. What IMC is asking for is for mappings, but we have none. But that's because we've not created any yet. So let's go back to our level view. Let's right click and add input action. So what we want to do, we want to create IA movement. That's going to be for our character moving left and right. And we want to create input action jump. This is going to be just for our character jumping. So let's go inside. What does it look like? Right, so this is movement. The only thing that we need to concern ourselves with is the value type. So if you look at it, it's digital bool. So what is this doing is asking type of yes or no kind of question. So because we're doing a movement, this is going to move either left or right. So sort of one direction kind of way. So what value we want to work with is axis 1D. So now if we go to IA jump, value type digital bool is fine because what it's doing is just using yes or no type of thing. Think back to our lesson where we talked about variables in Unreal Engine. So because this is going to be a jump, so we're going to be asking questions, is it jumping? Yes or no. Whereas for movement, it'll be a little bit more complex. Now, we don't need those IA movements anymore, so we can go ahead and close them down. In IMC, let's add our mappings. So let's add movement and press plus to add another one, and that's going to be our jump. So now we're left with these. What do we do now? So what we do now is we set the mapping. So what that means is that you're picking what key or click, whatever it is that you want to click or press, is going to trigger that movement. So what you can do is you can select something from here. But as you can see, there is a lot of options, especially from keyboard. There is gestures, there's motion. The easier way is to just click this. This is our keyboard, but it can be anything. So if you had, if you decided that a jump will be a click, you just click that and define it. So what this does is for movement, I would like to click on that and my movement is going to be a D key. So when I press D, the movement is going to happen. But now I want two movements, right? So I need to add another one. So what I've just done is I just click this plus. It's created another one and I follow the same thing. Now I want to turn left when I press A. What now we need to set is a modifier. So in zero array element, press plus and index set to negate. So it's going to do the opposite of what the D key does. In jump, define how you want your character to jump. So I want spacebar to work as my jump. Another thing you can set in IMC is how the player is meant to react with the trigger. So they can hold and release, they can pulse, they can tap, but I don't want to concern myself with these anymore, at least at the minute, so I'm just going to leave it. Now for this next bit, we can close IMC and we're going to go back to our blueprint for character. This time to the viewport, we're going to use event graph. As always, there are 3 nodes in Unreal that open and they're being disabled until they're needed. So out of those 3, I can tell you will not use event active begin overlap, so we can delete them. What we need to do now is we need to press either tab or right click to open options for blueprints. So we need to add get controller. Upon get controller. So we are telling Unreal we are getting a controller. And from return value, let's grab that and add cast to player controller. And let's add that to event begin play. In player controller, as player controller, get enhanced import local player subsystem. That is a very lengthy name. So if you type subsystem, you're going to have this lengthy name. And this is how the node looks like. To that, we grab that and we add mapping context. And we connect cast to player controller over here. Make sure you keep your nodes organized in a way where ideally those nodes links, especially if they're the same color, don't cross because you might get confused. So in add mapping context in a node, in mapping context, we need to add the one we just created. So it is IMC default. So now let's move slightly to the side. And let's add enhanced action event. So to find this, the easiest way is to type your IA underscore, and we're going to start with jump. The easiest way to find it is literally by just typing IA underscore and jump, because it's going to show up under import. So this is what the node looks like. So when we have started, let's grab that and add a print string. And now we're going to add another IA, and this time the movement one. And for this one, when triggered, let's grab and get print string. So let's set some differentiation between them. So the first one, I'm going to add text that is going to print jump when I press it. And when I work with AI movement triggers, it's going to say move. So compile, save, and let's go to our level and press play. So now we see our character, our background. Now if you click into your into the setup, if you start pressing your keys, see, I'm pressing space and it's printing jump. And when I press A or D, it's printing move. So that means what we've got so far is actually working. We're getting response from Unreal for what we've done. So that's good. So we've got that little bit sorted. We can delete print strings now because we know our input actions are working. So let's start with jump, because jump is going to be the easiest to start off with. For when started, drag that and add jump. And for completed, add stop. Stop jumping. Now this is all it takes to make the character jump. So if we compile this and save and play, our character is jumping. It's going up. But the problem that we have now is that it's still in its idle animation. And when we move to the side, it's not working. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. However, let's give ourselves a pat on the shoulder for making the jump work. So let's go to move. In triggered, I would like you to add movement input. Link action value to the scale value. Now we need to set the world direction. If we look at our level tab, this one, we can say which way we want the character to move. So using this gizmo, I would like you to move the player to see which value changes in details. Just see which one of those values are going to change. So it's not up, we want to move left and right, so we grab the red one. So we can see that the value is changing in the x-axis because it goes x, y, and z. So we'll go back to Blueprint and we set where direction in x to 1. And because we don't have to move in other directions, we leave these as 0. Now, if we compile this and save and play the level, the character is moving. So, well done, we've got the basic movement. Oh, and the character falling off. So this is a simple method of adding the movement to your character. However, we want a little bit more of that. We want a bit more from it. So we want to create some flipbook variables because we've made those amazing animations for our character. So it would be a shame not to use at least few of them. So let's utilize this event tick for now. So event tick, looking back to our lesson, is being fired off every frame of the game. So this can check for things happening in the game as we play. That will help us with keeping the animation state in our game up to date. So to start off, we want to have a change between idle and the walking state. So we need to set up the nodes that will determine whether the character is walking or is it just being idle. So to start off, we right click and get velocity. Let's, to return value, add vector length. So the vector length is going to give us a value of 0 if we are not moving, and the value of 1 if we are. And we don't really mind the direction, so this is fine. To the return value from vector length, you want to add greater than. This is where your maths shapes come in. Very useful. So what we want to do, we want to keep this as 0. Because we're checking if it's moving or not. So from this, let's add a branch node. The node is like a statement, if you will. It checks if something is true or false, essentially. And I want you to connect this red dot to the condition in branch. And connect event tick to the branch. So from this left-hand side, I would like you to drag in the sprite. So what it does is creates a little reference. And I would like you to connect that to set flipbook. So it's a new node. Set flipbook sprite. So sometimes it already comes in with a sprite. This is fine. We made a reference and we can delete it. So set that as a target. And the flipbook is going to be the new animation that you want to happen. So let's have walk. So let's connect it to true. So now you can copy those two nodes, so your sprite and your set flipbook. Just copy and paste it. And we're connecting this to false. However, when this statement is false, we don't want the character to carry on walking. What we want to do is we want the character to go back to its idle state. So we're going to set the new flipbook to be idle. Let's just spend a second or two organizing our nodes just to make sure they look all right. Sometimes you may need to have some extender like a dot that branches out to multiple nodes. If you like to have really organized graph, you can take your noodle and double click it and creates you a little dot. So what we've done now is we've told Unreal to switch between flipbooks. So if you start playing, it should, see, walk. Now we need to make it tell the difference between the other like states. So that would be either your jump or your turn left. But so far we've got the basic. Going back to BP character, let's give this a bit more space. So we're going to make so what we're going to do now is we're going to make it tell the difference between the jump and the walk. So to do that, let's give us some space between event tick and the branch, and let's get is moving on ground. So what this is going to check is whether the character is touching the ground. So your return value, you want to create another branch. Connect the branch to event tick. And let's connect this branch true to the other branch. So what we're telling it that if the character is moving on the ground, what to do. So it's either going to walk. If we said that the character is walking, it's going to walk. And if it's not walking, it's going to go into its idle state. Now for false, we need to add another branch. Let's make some space. So false branch. Let's get add velocity. Sorry, it's get velocity. In return value, I would like you to right click it and split struct pin. So now we need to determine whether we want X, Y, or Z value to move. So let's go back to the level viewport and let's use our gizmo to determine which value is going to hold the jump location. So it's not going to be red, it's not going to be green, so it's going to be blue. So it's going to be the Z value. So for that, let's get Z and add a node less than. And add it to the condition in the branch. So what we can do now, because it's about working smarter, not harder, we can copy these ones again and paste them back in. So what we're going to say now is we're going to plug that to true, and when character is jumping, we want the jump animation to play. Compile, save, let's play. Add get controller, and to the return value, let's add control rotation. Set control rotation. From set control rotation, let's get new rotation and add a node called select. So this node lets us decide between two rotation options. So we know that the action value from IA movement, will be something negative for left and something positive for the right. So from action value, we can just add a node greater. And this goes to the index. So we want this to move to the right if true, so all the values here can be the same. But from false, we want them to move to the left. So let's add another rotator. They're going to be always at the end. And for this, we want the character to move on the z-axis. So it's the opposite to the right, so it's going to be minus 180. Think about your angles, like you do in maths. Now, before I forget, let's set control rotation, connect it to add movement input, because otherwise the code is not going to work. The amount of times I've done that. So let's compile and save, go to our level, and let's have a go at playing it. So now when we play this, is going to cause an issue, but this is not because we've done something wrong. That's just because what's going on is the character turns left and so does the camera, and it moves us to look at the other side, like you just seen. I was at the back of my map. So the fix for this is easy. We're going to blueprint character, and we're going to spring arm, and where it says rotation in the transform section, we're going to set it to world, which is going to change to absolute rotation. Let's compile this and save, and let's give it a go again. So you see, the character is moving and it's jumping. So now we can make some changes to the camera. Like I said, it would be in camera, ortho width. And if you want to add some more changes to your character to customize a little bit some of the flow, click the character movement. And for example, you can make changes like, let's type walk. So we can do step heights, we can do speed of the character, max walk speed, let's set it to, I don't know, let's give it 3. And for the camera, let's set the auto width to 500. Now this depends on you and your preferences. So I just like to test. So let's play, and now I'm much closer to my character. So if your character, like mine, has a little bit of a gap, and if you lower it, it turns to bad size, it's not going to play. from this spot. So you need to have it above and go to viewport in your blueprint, and let's just have our character slightly lower. See if that works. And now she's standing on the platform. So these little things will have some trial and error. But all in all, have a go at different character settings. You'll be able to make changes to the jump and make some changes to, let's have a look, jump velocity, air control. There's all those different settings that you can change about your character. All of them are here. And just see what actually applies to your character. And just go from there. Just have a go and test different options, and make sure to record that and put that in your WordPress, because that is what gets you marks, that you try out new things. But that's it. By now you should have a basic little 2D game.